Hey everybody, it's Allie J here with you live, and it's great to be back with you. I know it's been a few weeks, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about right now. There's a lot going on with the election, with different things happening in our world, and so I'm gonna just play a little song right here, real quick for you, just to open things up, and yeah, hope it's not gonna, yeah. This is not gonna be long. We'll just do this little bit of a song. Thought I'd throw a little music in there as well for those of you that love music as much as I do. So I don't know how it sounds coming over the microphone. If you can leave comments, let me know how it sounds. If it's too loud, if it's too quiet, I don't know. So just let me know what you think. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. All right. Well, let's get this out of the way. Come up with a better system for the guitar. I got the cable wrapped around my guitar strap, so it did not come off as smoothly as I had hoped it would. Anywho, thank you for joining me. If you look in the background here, you can see my puzzle table. I got a puzzle going on. It is a little bit, it's a pretty hard puzzle. It's a Disney painting puzzle of the seven dwarves and oh yes, got to be politically correct. Seven dwarves and their little cottage. It's pretty cool. It's a hard painting. I mean, I'm not hard painting, a hard puzzle, but it's really cool. I got it at a yard sale, and for those of you who don't know, I like doing puzzles, and I went down to 1,000 piece. I am up to doing 2,000 pieces now. But when I saw this puzzle, I was like, that looks like it'd be a neat one to do, which I'm glad it's not more than 1,000 because it is a hard puzzle. Because of the painting, the strokes and everything kind of just bonds together and it makes it harder to pick pieces out. But it's a great puzzle. I really like it. And I'm excited to see what it looks like when it's done, other than knowing what the picture is on the box, of course, but actually finishing it, doing it myself. So, but I just want to thank you for joining me back here on the show. I'm changing the format a little bit. The show is now going to be called Live with Allie J instead of One Shot Podcast. I kind of had mentioned before that I was going to maybe be changing the name of it because the objective of the podcast is still the same, but the format is changing a little bit. So it's not going to be like a pre-recorded thing where, um, I'm going to be cutting things in and out. And hopefully coming up soon, I have a live interview planned. I'll leave that for a surprise. And it's going to be on Monday. I'm hoping if it all works out. Oh, my guitar almost fell over. Um, if it all works out, I'm hoping to do a live interview on election day, not Monday, Tuesday, election day on Tuesday. Because as you know, election day is coming up, and there are a lot of things that people are talking about, a lot of things people are arguing about, a lot of things that people just don't want to talk about. So I think what we are going to do is maybe talk about them a little bit. But first thing I want to do, just for a little fun, is I wanted to, you know, I've been driving a school van for a little while now, and I've been seeing a lot of interesting things happening on the road, and I've been seeing some interesting things happen just even as a regular driver. It's interesting, I'll just say that much. Um, there's a lot of people out there who do not stop at stop signs. They don't use their turn signals and different things like that. And as someone who is and even running red lights, as someone who's hauling school children, I find that a little bit scary sometimes because, when you're hauling children, it makes it a little more nerve wracking. And when they're not your children, it makes it even more nerve wracking. So I'm just going to say this. Please use your turn signals. Please use your brakes. Please stop at stop signs and red lights. And also, one thing I've been noticing for those of you who are familiar with this area, they just put in the first roundabouts in our area. They put two of them side by side. I don't know why they kind of set it up that way. It's because a bridge is going to be going over top, and they wanted to connect a couple roads together. And instead of making one big roundabout, they made two small roundabouts, and then they're going to run the bridge across it for the bypass that they're putting through. But all that being said, there are people that don't understand how to use roundabouts. And I mean, rightfully so. We've never really had roundabouts in this area except maybe one or two and a couple traffic circles in the area. But they're starting to become more prevalent in our area. And one good rule of thumb when you're entering, now you don't necessarily have to use your turn signal to enter a roundabout because there's only one way to go. But when you're exiting a roundabout, you should use your turn signal because typically in a roundabout, there are at least four exits. And it's kind of like an intersection. If you're at an intersection, you're going to use your turn signal to let people know where you're turning. But if you are going through a roundabout, you don't just keep driving and then just go for whichever one you want. You have to let the person behind you know, hey, I'm getting ready to turn. So please use your turn signals when you're exiting a roundabout because that's very dangerous and very key as well. So just a few tips for you for going on a roundabout. Roundabouts are pretty, once you get the hang of them, they're not bad. It's just a matter of whether people learn how to maneuver them properly. So just a few tips for you. Anyway, so kind of getting a little political here. I wanted to show you something that came in our mail the other day. I know a lot of people have been getting political mail. We've got the election coming up on Tuesday, and this is going to be a very, very big election. I don't know. I'm not going to try and guess who's going to win, and I'm not going to try and tell you who to vote for or anything like that. I'm just going to share some things with you that I hope you will take to heart and understand. Um, so we got this flyer in the mail from let's see who sent this out. I don't know. I'm not sure. It says it's from Check the Facts, I believe, or something. No, it's yeah, but I don't know. Doesn't say. Normally they say who sends them out. Paid for. Oh, there it is. Paid for by the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, right there on the top. But it has a quote from Governor Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania. For those of you who are just tuning in and don't know where I'm from Pennsylvania. And so Governor Josh Shapiro, he says, I have a message for Donald Trump. Stop blank. I'm not going to use the word talking America. It's the word that starts with S, if you didn't know. This is the greatest country on the face of the earth. It's time to start acting like it. Trump keeps talking us down and ripping away our freedoms. We can stop him. Vice President Kamala Harris will fight for the middle class, defend our rights and freedoms, and bring down costs. Okay, there's some nuggets of truth in what he's saying about what Vice President Kamala Harris wants to do, but there's a lot of things that he's not covering when he's talking about this because you hear Trump say he is trying to tell everyone how great America can be. And right now, we are in a crisis of inflation. I mean, yeah, you can say jobs are being created, but look what happened with COVID. So many jobs were lost and so many jobs came back and they called it job creation, all that kind of stuff. I won't get too into that right now either, but there's a lot of things happening in America with all the violence, the crime rate has gone up, the many different things happening, but the fact that he's saying Trump keeps talking us down and ripping away our freedoms. First of all, how is he ripping away our freedoms? Right away, obviously, it goes back to Roe v. Wade. That's what they're using as a basis for this ripping away our freedoms. No, it's not ripping away our freedoms. The point of the matter of Roe v. Wade was they wanted to bring it back to the states. That's where it belonged because the federal government, when it was formed, was not intended to overstep state bounds. Now, you can beg to differ that, with Congress has the right to create laws that bypass state laws and all that and this and that. But the courts were not designed to make laws. The courts were designed to it's all checks and balances. It's also that everything can stay um, level and that everyone has somebody checking up on them so that not one group is more becoming too powerful. So that way, the president has somebody watching his back in the Senate. You know, everybody's got somebody watching them basically. So that way they can't just go and do whatever they want, but they're using the courts to try and create laws because the Supreme Court is the highest authority, if you want to say that, in the United States. So whenever somebody doesn't like something, they take it to the Supreme Court and hope that the Supreme Court will vote in favor of them, and then eventually, essentially, I should say, it becomes law. Not really law, but it becomes a precedent, or I don't even know what to consider it, because if they're the highest law in the land, then what good is the House and the Senate? If they can vote on things, but then you can take it to the Supreme Court and overrule things as unconstitutional. Now, if it really is unconstitutional, then yeah, I mean, by all means. But Roe v. Wade was an exception as far as whether it really was constitutional to create that law in a sense. And now they want to work to codify Roe v. Wade as a permanent law. And that's what they're trying to do here by saying they're stripping away our freedoms. But in reality, they're not. If you, if it's up to each state. If you live in a state that bans abortion, you have the right to move to another state. You don't have to stay in that state. A lot of people think that that's how it works. Well, I live in this state. I should have the rights to, but each state has the right to make their own laws and say whether you can do certain things or not. It's based on each state. So if you like the laws of another state, that's that's your freedom to go there. But there's a lot of things holding people to certain places, and I understand that, but that's just how our government was set up, and I think it's a good way to keep it that way instead of having the federal government trying to overrule every single state, and then the states aren't even allowed to basically have their own freedoms. and I think that's kind of dangerous. But um and then also the bring down costs. Does anybody I feel like I'm talking to a class right now, but I always want to say, does anybody know what that means to bring down costs? Does Has anybody heard what Kamala Harris has said she wants to do to bring down costs? Well, her first um, thing that she was saying was that she was going to put price caps on groceries and other types of goods. But that right there in and of itself is taking away freedoms because the government, it's becoming a socialistic, maybe even close to communistic type of government when you start putting price caps, when you start trying to control free market, it's no longer free market. And what happens when that grocery store is forced by the government to put a price cap on groceries? They can no longer they can no longer cover the costs of their goods because they have to pay the company that's shipping them in. They have to pay the company that sells them to them, or maybe it's all rolled into one. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I did work at a grocery store for a while, and I learned that grocery stores don't actually make as much money as we think. A lot of their money comes from things besides food. But because of the cost of gas, because of the cost of transportation and all this stuff that goes into making the goods and bringing them to the stores is causing inflation. That's part of it. There's a lot more that goes into the economics of inflation and all that kind of stuff. I understand that, but that's the basics of it, and that is one thing that we have to think about. Um, I'm not gonna get into all the other details of that kind of stuff, but I just thought this flyer was very interesting because there's a lot of stuff on here that I just am like, do people really believe this stuff? Like, how can people just look at a flyer and say, "Oh, he must be right." Just because he's governor doesn't make him right. But yeah, he was a big proponent of shutting down the state and the country when COVID happened, and so I just have a hard time trusting his judgment on these things. Now, obviously, because he's a Democrat, he's going to side with the Democrats on this issue. I'm not pushing one side or the other. I'm trying to bring to light the idea that some of these things are not in the best interest of the United States. Do I agree with everything on the right side of the aisle? No, I don't agree with everything on the right side of the aisle, but I don't agree more with things on the left side of the aisle than I do the right side of the aisle, if that makes sense. Um, so I just wanted to address a few of those things. And as I said on Tuesday, I am really hoping to have a live interview. I'm not gonna mention who it is, just in case it doesn't work out, that way you're not disappointed, but, um, I'm gonna try to have a live interview on Tuesday, election day. It is a big day, I know, for a lot of people, and it's an exciting day because we get to pick the president of the United States, but you also wanna remember, just remember, there are lots of other important elections going on. There's local elections, the House and the Senate. Those elections are just as important as the president of the United States. The president can't do anything if they don't have a good Senate or a good House. So even if Donald Trump got elected, but the Senate stayed one way, there's not much he can do. He can do executive orders that apply to the federal government and federal things, like he can do his federal um, directives, but he won't be able to pass anything into law because that has to go through Congress first. So remember that. Remember that when you are voting, it's also important to vote for the House and the Senate. And then also your state elections are important as well. So make sure that you are voting for those as well. But I just wanted to bring this up because, like I said, I'm not trying to tell you who to vote for, but you need to vote based on what I mean, everybody has their own truth these days. And for me, the Bible is truth, God is truth, Jesus is truth, and what the Bible says, I believe is truth. And so, what I believe about abortion, I believe based on what the Bible says, I believe that to be truth. What the Bible says about how we should help, how we should treat others, I believe that is truth. And some people may look at certain candidates and say, well, this person looks like they are much nicer. They're much nicer on the outside. They treat people better. But on the inside, you don't know what they're like on the inside. And then you may see somebody on the outside that looks like they're rough around the edges and that they're just like the most terrible person that you might look at them like, "Oh, they're so mean," or they whatever, but then deep down, if you really look at it, if you look at their at what they've done before, what their history, um, not e I'm all I'm gonna say is not everybody is who they make themselves out to be. You know, somebody may try to come across as very friendly and just the most people person, and then when they're not around you, they could be saying something completely different. And then you have somebody else who might try to look real tough and act real, aggressive on the outside when they're around everybody because they want everybody to look at them as some, big person. But then deep down, they're just kind of like they're just your average person. And I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. That's up to you. Everyone has the right to vote for who they want to, and I'm not going to tell you what to do. But anyway, like I said, hopefully on Tuesday, we will have a live interview with a particular someone that I will leave unmentioned just in case it doesn't happen. And yeah, so I just wanted to introduce this new format, and I hope that you all are having a wonderful night tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you will tune in Tuesday. I will put a post out. I will try to do it through YouTube, but I also do it through the Facebook page. If we are going to be having a live broadcast, I will let you know. And I hope that you will tune in Tuesday for that live election day broadcast. I'm Allie J. Hope you have a wonderful night. Stay safe out there. With all the deer that are running across the road these days because of all the harvesting. I was driving on Route 80 here in Pennsylvania a couple days ago, and it was amazing how many deer I saw had gotten hit. So just please be careful on the roads. And yeah, I'm glad Halloween is over. I know that a lot of people, me personally. So no offense to any, just personally don't. So I hope you have a wonderful night. We'll see you next time right here live with Allie J. See you next time.